All right, I am back. Another Gren Twigs video, still talking about purity in Gren. Last time I talked about immutability, how values, once they're set, they cannot be changed. And I started to talk about functional purity, how you can't have a function that changes anything, which includes changing, interacting with things on the outside world. Like if you had a function that could pull things from the file system or from a database or things like that, then you can't be guaranteed that you're always going to get back that same value. So what does that mean in practice? First, I'm going to show you what it means in JavaScript, like last time, where you can write functions that are not pure. And I'm going to use local storage as an example here. So let's say I want to pull something from local storage called ABC. It's null because it doesn't exist. So right now, when I call get item with ABC, I always get back null. But some time goes by, later in the program happens, whatever, and a set happens. Now I get 1, 2, 3. So that's an example of something that's not pure. I can call it with the same input and I get different outputs. I can also affect the outside world. I can call a function and what this function gives me is nothing, because calling the function in JavaScript doesn't necessarily have to be about the return value. It can be about the effect that it has. In Gren, every function is only about its inputs and outputs. So in Gren, if you call a function with some given input, ABC for local storage get, you're going to get a value that's always the same. That sounds odd. I'll show you what I'm talking about soon. Similar for set. If I'm setting a value in local storage and I call the Gren's local storage set, I'm gonna, it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't actually set it. It just gives me this value. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Back to the Gren REPL where we've been for a while now. And we do have a local storage module. And this is what get would look like. So I'm going to get something called ABC, and I don't get a string for whatever value is in ABC. I get this value, this strange looking value, possibly. It's a task, and it has two other types attached to it, a read error and a string. What that means is I have some value that represents a task. It represents something that I want to do. I want to get the value of ABC from local storage. That's what this value represents. And those types that are attached, for most tasks, you're going to see something like this, where there's an error. There's two possible values. Some error that could happen, which is the same in JavaScript. If I have local storage disabled or something like that, instead of giving me the value, it would raise an error. And you may or may not be handling that. In Gren, it's going to force you to handle that. I'll get to that in a bit, but just know that these tasks have two possible states that you're going to have to handle: the error state and the successful state. So in a successful state, I'll get the string. I'll get something that ABC is set to. Now, what about set? You're going to call it like this, and same thing. It's a little bit different. We still have a task, but the possible error that could happen is not a read error; it's a write error, obviously. And the success state is not a string; it's just an empty record. And you're going to see empty records used in situations like this, where there has to be some return value, but you're not. It's pointless. So you don't really need to use it. There's no point in using the return value of a set task. So. Okay, if I'm not actually getting something, or I'm not actually setting something, I'm just creating these tasks. How do I actually do anything? I'll get to that, but first I want to talk a little bit about the benefits, which is this along with immutability, which I talked about in the last video. It leads to this state where when you're working with Gren, it gives, for me at least, a lot of peace of mind, because when I'm working in a function, that function is my entire world. I don't have to worry about the state of the outside world. I don't have to worry about affecting the outside world. All I have to worry about is the inputs to my function and what I'm going to return, because that's all that functions can do in Gren. Which is nice, but might raise some eyebrows because, okay, well, how do you actually do anything? I'll get to that in the next video, but a little preview of it is that there's this concept of a Gren runtime, and you're going to hand these tasks over to the Gren runtime. And I'll show you how you do that in another video. Goodbye.